What I'm holding here is a 2001 PRS Tremonti. This came up for sale a couple of years ago. It was not something that I wanted to initially buy because my thing, I don't really want to buy signature guitars, but I think a lot of us know what this is. And beyond that, I had a theory that something was going to happen with these guitars. They were going to start rising in value, and I had a good example at a low price. So I did it, and I'm so glad that I did because it's happening. They are rising in value, and it happened a lot faster than I thought. And we're going to talk a little bit about why. So hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan, coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe and share. It really helps. So to begin this video, we're not going to talk about the guitar. We're going to talk about the biggest cliche that I had to experience in my previous career as a marketer. So what used to happen, and I've talked about this in a previous video as well, is I used to constantly have a lot of presentations from creative agencies for new marketing campaigns. And when you're a creative agency, you have to kind of present something about how you understand the customer. And because of this understanding of the customer, you're supposed to do this sort of thing from a marketing standpoint.
Advertising is based on one thing: happiness.
They told me about millennials because I used to work in the late 2000s and the early 2010s when millennials were the big new thing. And they told us this: millennials, they are a completely different breed of human. They think nothing like Gen X. They think nothing like boomers. They value experience. They don't care about physical material products. They are all about experiences and holidays and social media and sharing and all that. They used to sell this to me, and hence they used to say, hence you should make a social media app for your product or whatever it is. I used to, of course, listen to these things, but maybe I was a little bit biased. Maybe I was just too fond of reading history. I always was aware that every new generation is presented as this new breed, which the older generation doesn't understand, does not like, and finds a little bit abrasive. And today, millennials are no longer the new thing. It's really Gen Z or iGen, people born in the 2000s, people who are smartphone native. And now these people are completely different, of course. Again, the story goes on again and again. Now, what does all of this have to do with this Tremonti that I am holding over here? The thing is, and I talked about this in a previous video, if you've seen it, this is an old video of mine, so I'm referring it. This is the one on the DG 335. If you believe what these so-called marketing experts said, millennials would behave very different from boomers once they started getting older, once they started getting into their 40s or 50s. They would not value things the way the boomers do. Right today, the vintage market is a crazy thing because a lot of baby boomers are reliving their youth. So that same thing should not happen with millennials. Millennials should be like, had that experience. I love the experience. I don't need a physical object that reminds me of that time period. But if you've noticed what's been happening with guitars that were iconic in the early 2000s, and I know it's not all millennials. These terms anyway, millennial, Gen X, baby boomers, these are porous terms. They have a lot of intersections. So if you see what's been happening with iconic music and iconic instruments of the late 90s and early 2000s, it's all starting to look very familiar. All of a sudden, iconic guitars from that period are rising in value. Think about what happens with the Tom DeLonge guitars. Think of what happens with Dave Grohl, which was my entire video. And now this thing. Right. So the thing is, even for me, and it's surprising, my university days, the year I entered university is 20 years ago. 20. And 2004 now seems like a rose-tinted nostalgic dream, even to me, even though I don't consider myself particularly old. And for me, when I was looking at this guitar, when this popped up, I liked it, but then I have so many Les Pauls, I have so many PRSs, I have so many single cuts. Of course, this guitar played amazing. It has a thick neck and everything. I've talked about this in a previous video. But I was like, even though it was only like $2,000, I was like, why do I need to get another single cut that's $2,000? But then it struck me that there are two aspects that I'm not taking into account when I am thinking of this guitar. The first thing is, this is not just another single cut. This is the guitar that I remember seeing when I was said 18 years old, 20 years ago, looking at those videos. And regardless of whatever you say, as much as I pride myself on rationality and logic, ultimately, as a human, and I talk about this in my Gibson episode, we are. And am I wearing a Gibson shirt? Oh my God, I am wearing a Gibson shirt. How appropriate. As I talked about in my Gibson episode, we humans like stories. We seek meanings to structures like stories, and this guitar or this particular model is part of that story. It is part of that journey of discovery of music that in my late teens and early 2000s in university. So yes, every time I look at it with this distinctive guitar with the very plain black with that Tremonti underwear logo, and this what looked at then like a very strange bridge, now I know exactly what it is. It has a certain meaning versus any other guitar. It just does. So that's one thing. So I was like, yeah, I shouldn't deny it. I should know that I like this guitar irrationally for these irrational reasons. And the second thing is, it was only $2,000. And I was like, this is a fairly iconic guitar. It is in the music videos of certainly very, very big songs that were big well beyond the guitar mainstream. How is this thing only $2,000? It's definitely going to go up. Maybe it's just kind of, it's not hitting that wave yet. And on cue, look at what's happened in the last 2 years. The first thing that's happened is Creed is reunited again. 2000, late 2023, they reunited again. They went in a summer of 99 cruise. If that doesn't tell you that millennials aren't and Gen X are exactly like boomers, I don't know what else will tell you. Used to have these rock cruises, right, where you have all the bands from the 70s and 80s, and I like Nuno shredding on that rock cruise. It's not going to be restricted only to people who grew up in the 70s and 80s. It's going to happen again for the 90s and 2000s. So Creed is suddenly in the popular imagination again, and probably due to the nostalgia of people like me or people, say, within 5 to 10 years older than me. And suddenly, recently, this guitar... So I was not paying attention to this guitar. Then it popped up recently on my feed that there's one for sale on Brian's guitars. I just went to see the price. And guess what? It was double. It was $4,000 versus $2,000 that I paid for this. And it was gone. So it's not even a case of price testing. It's just gone like that. So I don't know if there are any more on Reverb right now. I'll probably take a quick look. As of right now, I can't find any. But double, just like that. So, and I don't think it'll stop there, because even $4,000 is cheaper than a core PRS. And this again is one of those things that is transcending beyond that. So what am I trying to say here? I think there are 2 or 3 things. One thing that I find very counterproductive is this entire fake boomer versus millennial versus Gen Z narrative that you get, right? There are some pretty negative terms, boomer bends and stuff like that. I dislike it. It is just a question of being in a different stage in life. So people in different stages value things differently. When you're young and idealistic, you seem invincible. When you're a little bit older, then you suddenly realize the value of certain things, and you realize you look back at certain experiences in a more fonder way. And everybody will do that. It doesn't matter that you were born staring at an iPad. When you are 40, you will probably look back at your time staring at an iPad, and maybe they have, I don't know, maybe they have Neuralink now. And you'll long back for those iconic days where you could just press a touchscreen or something. It's going to happen to you. So have a little bit of awareness to think that you and your generation are not necessarily that special, and it applies both ways. Because, especially in a lot of videos I've been making recently on popular music, one on Taylor Swift versus the Beatles, one on AI and music. There is so much negativity even against, say, Taylor Swift and the modern music industry. I personally believe that the popular music of the earlier era was better constructed, no doubt. But at the same time, I also know that there are people having genuine enjoyment from the music of today, even if I don't like it, even if I turn on the classic radio station. So that doesn't mean that all of today's music is trash and everything is going to hell and this generation is terrible. I mean, don't be that older generation saying that this newer generation is terrible as well. So that side of the argument isn't great. And if nothing else, just look at what's happening with millennials at this stage, because they are in that perfect in between. And Gen X, I know, I don't want to forget Gen X. Gen X is a little bit older. And you can clearly see that humans will be humans. We'll behave a certain way depending on age and experience. But essentially, there is no point finding these divisive differences and getting annoyed at them. In the meantime, while you contemplate on this, I don't know what I just said, I'm going to play this guitar and have some fun. I'll see you next time.